Hello and welcome to another video. So today we are checking out a unlimited DragonCraft deck. This one is a Dragonclaw pendant style deck which focuses more on ping and aggro to really whittle down the opponent's health and just finish them off. While not the best deck in the meta, I'm trying to find some things that are a little more out there and different since we haven't got a lot of change coming lately, so I thought why not try and cover something at least a little bit different. So let's get right into this and check it out. So, kicking us off with the first game against Havencraft. Definitely not the easiest of matchups for this deck, since it typically doesn't deal well with any kind of healing, and Haven typically does stock a reasonable amount of healing. Of course, it's not the be-all end-all either. I could definitely cope with this, I think. So we've got a fairly standard opener into a nice Dragon Oracle, Dragonclaw pendant style play. Should be able to hopefully open us up some decent lines going forward, especially since turn 3 is looking pretty decent for us overall. Especially with that draw, rounding out our full turn. Plus the Dragonclaw next turn will potentially allow us to score a decent chunk of potential damage. Especially seeing City of Gold get played and a Pinion Prayer. Most likely going face, since that's typically what these Amulet Haven decks like to do, which does mean this Dragonclaw is now even more dangerous, since we get a very easy 3 damage. Hard part's getting Dragonclaw to stick to the board, but once you do, it's pretty easy to roll the game into your favor. So here is the Regal Falcon play. Still going face again, not a surprise. I can't really blame them. I just try and set up a little bit of board. Probably could have done that better, to be honest, going with like Dragon Horde or something, but this was still a pretty respectable play and one I was glad to take. So we've got a good chunk of damage in. Phoenix Howl for 4 cost will actually be really good. And Divine Birdsong isn't really a... This deck typically likes to deal a lot of damage with small followers like this. Anything gets increased by 1 with Dragonclaw Pendant, so that does make it a lot easier to maintain decent damage. Of course, going up against Haven is dangerous. Luckily for us, Dragon Horde was enough to end up closing this game, because the Falcon and stuff are not fun to verse, that's for sure. We did get a little bit lucky with this match overall, but this deck tends to roll pretty nicely if you can get Dragonclaw out early, a little bit harder if it's later in the game. Next up, we're going to be playing against Runecraft. It's honestly getting harder and harder to find different variations of decks. I've tested about 4 or 5 that went nowhere and ended up with 20 to 30 loss streaks, so I haven't had a lot of fun in that regard lately, trying to get some videos for you guys. Playing like 40 card legendary decks or just random off the wall things that I could think up and try and find around. Since we have covered pretty much all of the major meta decks as far as they go until some changes come in. So don't expect there to be too much crazy new stuff going on, at least for the next week or 2. Until we get some changes. White Frost Dragon should be okay. That's a good starting point for this deck. It's always a nice time to get it out early. Unfortunately, we don't really have a lot going into turn 3 that could be crazy good. The Dragon's Nest definitely kind of makes up for it a little bit, but not enough. Mysterian Knowledge. A lot of spells going around the place. Not good for us. The more spells Rune plays, obviously, the easier it's going to be for them to just finish us off. And all we can really do is force ramp. That's kind of our best option. Fortunately, I can also go for board presence in case we potentially get our Dragonclaw Pendant. And the return on the Dragon Sword is actually really good. Being able to use the Evo again to regain another play point, put us ahead even further, is definitely a great advantage. And this is a very easy removal turn. So we're trying to set up so we can go for turn 8 Dragonplate Warrior. It's a massive ward that should potentially buy us a decent turn. And we're going to go for a double heal as well, so we're going to gain 4 health back. Bringing us back up to 20 provided we don't take more damage. Of course, we are going to take more damage, but hopefully that is mitigated enough that it's not a big deal. And judging by the fact they're still aiming for a good draw, most likely not too big a worry. So leave up my 4-1, and I get the double heal and draws. All looking pretty promising, and a very easy Dragonplate Warrior. Basically the card that should close out the game if they can't remove it this turn, with the concede obviously not having any removal. Worked out pretty well. So while this deck isn't half bad, would I recommend it for any kind of decent play? No, it's definitely on the janker style of decks, but it runs its engine okay, does the job for what it is, and that's always nice. It's also not super heavy on legendaries, only running, you know, Lindworm, Bahamut as the top end and the couple of White Frost for the middle, so 4 is a pretty respectable number these days, although they're definitely cheaper unlimited decks, so keep that in mind. Hopefully you guys did enjoy this video. If you did, hit the like button, subscribe. You'll find the deck list in the description below. Until next time guys, see ya.